In this video I want to explain the system for reviewing what students have done on a STACK quiz. So firstly we go to the course page as we've got here, and then we click on the particular quiz that we're interested in, and then we click on results here, and then we go to this box up here, and instead of grades we're going to select STACK response analysis. Okay, so now see across here there's a bar with all the questions in order. We're going to focus for the minute on question 2. So at the top, this question 2, it's called binary sequence example. If we want, we can click on these buttons here to edit the question or to preview the question. We won't bother doing that just now. And then if we want, we can have a look at the question code. Okay, so here above this you've got a kind of faint line across here, and above the line you've got the question variables section, which sets up various variables related to the question, and then below the line you've got the marking code from the feedback variables section. And then here we've got the question text. This is kind of as it's seen in the question editing page. So you've got these kind of codes like @bs, which gets substituted for the value of the variable bs, and so on. We can hide that if we want. So then we've got the list of responses. Okay, so if you remember, in the marking code we set an answer note depending on the type of the answer. So let's maybe have a quick look back at that here. Here we see if the answer satisfies a certain condition, then we set the answer note to abbreviated. Or under other conditions you might set the answer note to integer or set or not list or various other things that the answer note could be set to throughout the question code. And so here we see all the possible answer notes, and then here we've got examples, right? So here there's six different responses which involve a list of the wrong length, and if we want to have a look at one of those, we can just click on one of these numbers here, and we see an example together with the feedback that was given to the student in that case, and some kind of stuff about the response history. So we're seeing here that this is actually the first submitted answer by the student, and it has the wrong length. And you'll see that the color of that number has changed a little to indicate that we've looked at it. We can look at another one, different example of a list of the wrong length. And so there's 6 of them altogether, as it tells us over here, 6 of 23. There's 23 answers altogether in this for this question, and so 6 of 23, that's 26% of the answers. We might actually want to see the actual answer rather than just the answer note which classifies it, so that's going to make the list rather longer. So here we now got 23 different ones. It's around 20 different answers. A few of them have been replicated more than once, but mostly the answers are only given once. And so we see that this first answer is the correct answer. 2 of 23 attempts involve that answer. That's 9%. And if we're doing it this way, we might want to sort things in a different order. You get a choice of the order here. Initially it's typically best to just sort by frequency, so you give the most common answers first. But in this kind of view where you're actually showing the answer, it's typically better to sort differently. So now it's sorting according to firstly the mark, and then the answer note, and then the answer itself. So now we've got all the wrong length answers grouped together, all the correct answers grouped together, and so on. You can also switch on determine which attempts are shown. I mean, initially all attempts are shown. I mean, typically each student will enter an answer and maybe get it wrong and then try a few more times. If you want to just see what happened with the students' first answers, their initial attempt, we just click initial here. So now we've only got 9 initial attempts, and we see that two people answered correctly. If we just go back here, so we're only showing the answer notes. So yeah, we see that 2 people answered correctly. Sort by frequency again. various other things that got 2 different responses. And similarly, we can just look at the final versions. So we see that most people eventually got the right answer. 2 people left incorrect answers. So that's what we see in the response analysis section. So what we've shown here is a case where there's a single answer box in which the students can enter a fairly arbitrary answer. The pattern looks a bit different for questions with different kinds of input elements. We'll have a look at in a minute at a separate example where there's a multiple response question, which is one of the very common types of question. But that looks a little similar, but a little bit different. Okay, so now let's look down at this next section here, these note chains. Okay, so here we've got like a tree pattern showing what happened. So everything kind of in this first column here, these are people's first attempts. We've got 2 first attempts were correct, 2 are of the wrong length, 2 are not binary sequences, 1 is an integer, 1's not a list. Okay? And the fraction of answers of this type is indicated by the numbers. So it's 22% did that, 22% did that, 22% did that, and 11% did that. Okay? And again, we've got these little buttons where we can click on these buttons to see review an example of an answer of the relevant type. And if we've had a full class with hundreds of students or so, then you might have more than 10 answers in one box. In that case, it'll only give you 9 links to 9 examples. It won't give you all. And then you can see what people did. So here there were 2 instances where people entered something that's not a binary sequence, and then we see that of those 100% then went on to give an answer of the wrong length. So because that was 100%, we're still at 22% altogether. And then of these 50%, then went on to give an answer that was not a binary sequence. So that's 50% of that 22% is now 11%. And the other 50% of that 22% and 11% gave an answer of the wrong weight. And then in both cases, 2 steps later, they gave the correct answer. So we can. So the idea is, we can look at this pattern and we can ask what kind of feedback was given for an answer of the wrong length, and this by examining this tree, we can decide whether we think the students understood that feedback, and maybe we can modify it if necessary. Similarly, we can see what kind of mistakes people are making at the first step, and if there's some mistakes that are extremely common, then we can feed that back to the lecturer and maybe try and teach the material in a slightly different way the next year or something, or maybe give some extra explanation in the following lecture. Then finally, we've got this other section at the bottom, which is about timelines, which gives us some information about how long it's taking students to do the question. All this is fake data at the minute. It's not terribly representative, but you can at least see how the system works. So each grey bar corresponds to a particular student. Okay, so here we look here, and you look down at the bottom. We see that this student here made 5 attempts, total duration of 2 minutes and 5 seconds, and each of these red blobs represents an incorrect attempt. So here it says that 1 minute and 7 seconds after first viewing the question, they entered an answer, an incorrect answer, and then they made the second one minute and 18 seconds later, and then 19 seconds after that they gave another incorrect attempt, and 11 seconds later another incorrect attempt, and then eventually 2 minutes and 5 seconds after first viewing the question, 58 seconds after their first attempt, they gave a correct answer. So this will give us some insight into the pattern, or firstly how many attempts people are taking and how long they're taking. But point to note here is that we're counting from the first view, and which is kind of, well, if like with a level 1 engineering you've got quizzes which often consist of just a single question, then that's reasonable. But if you've got a quiz that consists of several questions, then the student will see all the questions at the same time, but you don't really know when they start thinking about the last question. So it may be more informative to click this button here, first attempt. So now we see timelines kind of starting just with the starting from when the student first entered an answer for the given question. So this so because this is fake data, none of the students are taking very long. If they were, except for there's this last example. This was some where total duration is over 4 hours. So they went to had a quick look at the quiz and then went away and did something else and didn't come back and enter any answers until much later. So that can happen. But anyway, if there's if people are taking a long time, then you might want to do the zoom thing to zoom in and see what's going on. Zoom out, I guess. So that's basically everything there is to say about this standard type of question where we've got a single text box. We'll also have a look at another example. Okay, so this is a multiple choice question. So maybe let's click the preview button here. So we've got a multiple response question like this with six options, of which it turns out that only 2 are correct, and the students are supposed to tell us which options are correct. So let's just try a random answer. And so this is one of these type of questions where it tells us about the first option that we've misclassified. So we ticked option A and it was not correct to tick option A. So we've got a little feedback message saying that it was incorrect to tick option A. So let's correct that. Let's untick it. And then ideally, of course, the students will actually think about all the other options, but let's suppose they don't and they just correct the thing that they were told to correct. So now it's telling us that we should have ticked option B. And, okay, so now let's think about it some more. Now we've got the correct answer. Okay, so how does this work here? So it's kind of the same, except you have to understand what the answer notes mean. So firstly, the students see the questions. The students see all the options shuffled into random order. But in these answer notes, they've kind of been unshuffled. So here you get kind of six items corresponding to the 6 options that are offered to students, and these are always kind of in the same order as they appear in this unshuffled list here. And you see you've got capital Y's and little y's, capital N's and little n's. So the capital Y's mean, or any Y means that the student ticked that option, and it's a capital Y if they correctly tick the option, and a little y if they incorrectly tick the option. Similarly, an N, a capital N or a lowercase n, that means that the student didn't tick a particular option, and it's a capital N if it was correct for them not to tick the option, or a little n if it was incorrect for them to tick the option. So this code here, we've got 6 Y's. That means that the student ticked all possible options, whereas the first 2 are capital Y's. That means they should have ticked the first 2, and they shouldn't have ticked the last 4. Okay. And and then here's a different option here, and so of course because these are all back in the right order, it's still the case that they should have ticked the first 2 options and not any of the subsequent ones. And this, of course, is a fairly common pattern when we set up these multiple choice questions. We give fairly common, at least, we set things up so we give the correct options first, sort of in this unshuffled list, and then we give the incorrect options later. So when once everything's been kind of unshuffled into the right order, then the students should be ticking the first 2 and not the remaining ones. Okay, so. Yeah. So similarly here, look at this one, the student has only ticked the second option, and it was correct for them to tick the second option, and it was correct for them to leave the last 4 options unticked. They left the first option unticked, and that was incorrect. And again, if we want to see examples of students doing this, we just click on one of these numbers. So here we see that this is a case where the student only ticked this option here, the cubic polynomial, and they got some feedback to say that one of the other options was correct as well. Yeah. So again, we've got this system of note chains. You can these note chains are rather unnatural because I just sort of set it up in a fake way. But so we see that there's 4 students who did this particular pattern first. They ticked 4 options, of which only 1 was correct. And then at the next step, all of them just ticked everything. And then the next step after that, so we've got 4 students at this stage. Half of them got the right answer at the 3rd stage, and the other 2 did a whole chain of further incorrect answers before eventually getting the right answer there. And again, we see the timelines down here. Let's rebase it, so from the first attempt, and then see these people taking 1 minute and 20 seconds, and 8 attempts to get to the right answer. Okay, so that's all we're going to say about this this system for reviewing student answers. And the idea is that we'll hope to institute a system whereby this kind of gets done reasonably systematically. We'll have people specifically assigned to review what's happening in stat quizzes, and maybe think about what they're learning from the review, and sort of write some kind of summary of actionable feedback that can be given to the lecturer.